Hi, everybody. As you're hopping on, we are just going to hold for a few minutes, let more people join us, and then we'll get started. Okay, I'm going to get us started. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm so glad everybody could join us today for our SSBG post-expenditure report training webinar. You might notice on this slide a couple of new things, including the new SSBG logo. There's also a new Office of Community Services logo, which might look a little bit familiar. They were really pleased with the former SSBG logo and borrowed some of that imagery for the whole office. So we were delighted to share in some of that beautiful imagery. And we have a little bit more of a modernized look here for our slides. Today, we've got a really robust agenda for you. We are excited to introduce the team. We have some new additions and provide some general background about where our grant program is located in the Office of Community Services. We'll give a broad overview of our program, present our service categories for our program, clarify the purpose of our pre-expenditure versus our post-expenditure reports, highlight information that should be included in your post-expenditure report as a grant recipient of the SSBG program. We'll also get to have a demonstration of the SSBG portal through our partners over at WRMA, and then provide some quick tips at the end before we take some time for question and answer. So thank you all again for joining us. We're delighted you could attend today. This webinar will be recorded and posted on our portal website after we wind down. So without further ado, I would love to introduce the team. We have recently experienced some transitions on our team. Sharice Johnson, our acting division director, has moved on. She's still within ACF, luckily for us, but she's in a new role now. So our new acting division director is Cheryl Zuni, and I would love to invite her at this point to participate and introduce herself. Cheryl?
Thank you, Beth. I appreciate it. Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity to share the virtual space with you and this webinar today. I am Cheryl Zuni, and I am the Interim Division Director of Social Services. I am very honored and grateful to join and lead this team, which consists of very passionate professionals, as you all are aware, that are committed to assisting and supporting all of you, our grant recipients, in the very crucial work we do for our communities. Together, I intend to continue the significant strides, and my goal is to build upon our successful momentum to carry out the goals on behalf of our communities and the impact we make there. As always, our team is here to support you. So if you have any questions, if you need any assistance, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. We are more than happy to help to find the answer. We may not have an answer immediately, but I do commit that we will find an answer and we will get back with you with a response. I'm looking forward to working with all of you. And together, I think we can carry out the great work that we do. So I look forward to it. With that, I'll turn it back over to Beth, and she's going to introduce our amazing team. Thank you all.
Thanks, Cheryl. Thanks so much for joining us today. Today is Cheryl's second day in the role of acting division director for our division, so we're really pleased she could attend. As mentioned, I am Beth Plewa. I am the Division of Social Services Program Operations Branch Chief. Also on our team, a lot of you are probably familiar with Josetta Alexander, who is our Senior Program Specialist overseeing Regions 1, 3, and 8. Alongside her, we have Jamia Furbush, who is a Program Specialist working with Regions 2, 4, and 7. Also on our team and presenting today is Hannah Wong, who is a program specialist that works with Regions 5 and 9. Ali Richards is also presenting today. She is a program specialist that works with Regions 6 and 10. And then finally, we have a brand new program specialist that just joined our team recently named Lauren Ryan, and she'll be getting acclimated to the team and then take on some of the work with you all at the regional level as well. So again, thank you for joining us. Looking forward to a great presentation and Q&A at the end. And please don't hesitate to put your questions into the chat, and we will get to those at the end of the presentation. At this point, I will ask Ali and to come off of mute and join me. Thanks, Ali, and I'll hand things over to you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Beth. So all SSBG grant recipients are required to submit a post-expenditure report by March 30th each year, unless you follow the state fiscal year, which the deadline is December 31st. This submission is crucial for maintaining compliance and ensuring transparency in how funds are utilized. During this training, we will walk you through the requirements and detailed steps involved in submitting your post-expenditure report accurately and on time. Additionally, we will review some general background information about SSBG to provide context and ensure a comprehensive understanding of the program. Questions throughout the session, please feel free to use the Zoom Q&A feature. We'll address your questions at the end of the training and to ensure everyone receives the information they need. Next slide, please. The Office of Community Services, or OCS, works closely with states, territories, and tribes and various community agencies through its grant programs. These partnerships are essential for addressing the multifaceted challenges posed by poverty. The main objective of these collaborations include addressing the cause and impacts of poverty, increasing opportunities and fostering economic security for individuals and families, and revitalizing communities to enhance their sustainability and growth. With OCS, the Division of Social Services, or DSS, plays a key administrative role, and it oversees programs such as the Social Services Block Grant, SSBG, and the Consolidated Block Grant, CBG, specifically for the territories. This administration ensures that resources are effectively allocated and managed to support the goals of the OCS. Next slide, please. Let's dive into the details of the Social Services Block Grant, or SSBG. This federal block grant is a significant funding source provided to the states and territories with allocations based on population size. This population-based distribution system ensures that funds are proportionally provided to areas with greater needs. SSBG does not directly partner with tribes, but grant recipients may do so if they choose to. One of the key strengths of the SSBG is its flexibility. This grant allows states and territories to allocate funds to a wide range of services tailored to support vulnerable groups within their communities. This includes children and families in need, seniors who may require additional assistance, and individuals with disabilities who need supportive services. The ability to use these funds flexibly empowers local governments to address unique community needs and develop programs that make a meaningful impact. Next slide, please. The SSBG defines 28 specific services, which are grouped under related activities called high-level service areas. These high-level service areas are essential for organizing and describing the use of the SSBG funds in both the annual report and other policy data. The main high-level service areas include child welfare or youth at risk, which focuses on protecting children and supporting at-risk youth, counseling and support, encompassing a range of supportive counseling services to assist individuals in overcoming challenges, daycare, children or child care, which supports programs that provide child care services, health and well-being, seeing services that contribute to overall physical and mental health, self-sufficiency, aimed at helping individuals and families become financially independent, services of the disabled address the specific needs of individuals with disabilities, and services to vulnerable and older adults, focusing on support for seniors and those in vulnerable positions. Other support services, which include various additional services that don't fall under the primary category, but still play a critical role. Next slide, please. Let's move to the essential records included in the post-expenditure report that the SSBG grant recipients must submit annually. This report serves as a critical accountability measure, capturing key data points related to the use of SSBG funds. The post-ex must detail the total SSBG expenditures for the reporting period. This figure represents how the allocated funds were spent across various services. The total number of individuals who benefited from the services funded by the SSBG. This data helps illustrate and reach an impact of the grant within the community. It's important to remember that this report is due annually by March 30th, unless your state follows state fiscal year reporting, then it's due on December 31st. Timely and accurate submission of this report is essential for compliance and for demonstrating the value and effectiveness of the services provided through SSBG funding. Next slide. So what's the difference? Pre-expenditure report. This type of report is created to outline the projected expenditures and the anticipated number of recipients for a given program or initiative. It is submitted as part of the approval process and is typically included with the intended use plan. This ensures that there is clear forecast of how funds will be allocated. A key point to remember is that the pre-expenditure report is submitted before the start of the federal or state fiscal year. It helps to set a baseline for financial planning and approval. You are also able to adjust any information in your pre-expenditure up until you start to fill out your post-expenditure. States and territories should closely align planned and actual spending, updating the pre-expenditure report as needed throughout the year to minimize discrepancies with the post-expenditure report. The post-expenditure report, in contrast, details the actual expenditures incurred and true number of recipients served. This data from this report is compiled and analyzed to contribute to the SSBG annual report, which helps provide transparency and insight for future planning. Unlike the pre-expenditure report, the post-expenditure report is submitted after the fiscal year has concluded for the reconciliation of projected versus actual figures. And now I will turn it over to Hannah, who will cover requirements for the post-expenditure.
Thank you so much, Ollie. So like she said, I'm going to be covering the required components of the post-expenditure report and the data you will need in order to fill it out successfully. When you access the post-expenditure report form, it is going to be a web form, and it is divided into 3 pages or tabs. So I thought it would be most helpful for me to go through each of these pages or tabs and detail the components and information that is required for each. So the first tab that you will come across when you enter the post-expenditure report form is a tab called Definitions. And all that is required for you to fill out on this page is a handful of sort of overhead information. You'll be asked to provide contact information for your state or territory SSBG program contact, as well as your state or territory official contact. You will be asked to provide the state or territory definitions of the terms child, adult, and family. And then you will be asked to answer a few questions about TANF transfer if you are making use of the TANF transfer into SSBG funds. Some of these components may sound familiar if you have experience filling out the intended use plan and pre-expenditure report. You will note that this is a lot, like this asks for a lot less overhead information than the IUP and pre-ex do, and this is by design. We are not trying to capture nearly as much information as the IUP does, in part because you have already provided that to us earlier in the fiscal year, so you do not need to go through all of that again. Next slide, please. The second tab of the post-expenditure report form is titled Expenditures, and this is going to be the real meat of the post-expenditure report. So we are asking you to look back over the fiscal year and look at all the services that were funded using your SSBG allocation. And then we're asking you to categorize those services in accordance with the 29 service categories defined by the SSBG office. And to report the amount of the SSBG allocation that was spent funding services in each of those service categories. So for each relevant service category in which you're reporting expenditures, you will also be asked to break down those expenditures between the current year, or rather reported year SSBG allocation, carried over SSBG allocation funds, current year TANF transfer funds, carried over TANF transfer funds, and then any other federal, state, and local funds that you feel are relevant to include in the report. You will also be asked to indicate whether the services in each service category were provided by public agencies, private agencies, or a mixture of both. And you may find that you fill out as few as just one service category in the post-expenditure report, or as many as all 29. We just ask that you provide a comprehensive overview of all the services that were funded with all the expenditures SSBG allocated to you in that fiscal year, and categorize them appropriately. Next slide, please. And then the third tab is recipients, which is sort of the counterpart of the expenditures tab. We are asking you to report the total number of individuals who received SSBG funded services in each service category in which you funded services. And once again, we are asking you to break down the recipient information, this time demographically. Within each service category, we would like to know the number of recipients who were children, adults age 59 years or younger, adults age 60 years or older, and then adults of unknown age if age was not captured appropriately in your data collection. You will also be asked to provide a brief description of any eligibility criteria that may apply, or to indicate if you are going to provide that information to us in an email along with your submission. Next slide, please. So a little note about TANF transfer, since you've heard me mention that a couple of times. For any grant recipients who make use of TANF transfer into SSBG and use those funds accordingly to fund services, you must include that information in your post-expenditure report. Please include the total TANF transfer amounts as part of each service category in which they were included under the expenditures tab. And then also make sure to include the recipients of TANF transfer funded services in the recipients tab, even though you will also notice that the recipients tab doesn't ask you to distinguish between like recipients of TANF transfer funded services versus recipients of solely SSBG funded services. That would be a very, very thorny sort of distinction to make. So we're not asking you to distinguish that, but they must be included, the recipients of these TANF transfer funded services. As a note, please remember that TANF transfer funded services are restricted to recipients at or below 200% of the federal poverty line. This departs from the SSBG regulations, which do not specify at the federal level any restrictions for recipients of SSBG funded services. Furthermore, when including TANF transfer information in your post-expenditure report, please ensure that it is consistent with what is reported in your federal financial report, ACF 196R, that you fill out about TANF and submit a copy of alongside your IUP and pre-expenditure report every year. Next slide, please. And I'm also going to add a note about carryover information, since this can be a little bit of a confusing point for grant recipients and people filling out the post-expenditure report. So your post-expenditure report should identify any SSBG carryover amounts, and there may be up to 2 forms of it. So if there's any carryover from the fiscal year prior to the one being reported, and if there's any carryover from the fiscal year being reported. So I think it is easiest to understand this if I use a more concrete example. Right now, many of you may have started filling out the fiscal year 2024 post-expenditure report. And when you fill it out, the expenditures tab should include any FY 2023 to FY 2024 carryover if it exists. And this information should be included in the carried over SSBG allocations column. Furthermore, if there is any if there's any carryover from FY 2024 to FY 2025, which is our current fiscal year, that information should also be captured, but only in one spot, which is the entry titled Remaining Funds to be Carried Over at the very bottom of the expenditures tab. So to recap, FY 2023 to 2024 carryover, that should be captured in an entire column called Carried Over SSBG Allocations, and then any carryover from the reported year to the current year, or 2024 to 2025, is included at the end in Remaining Funds to be Carried Over. If you have any questions about this or you require further clarification, please don't hesitate to voice that at the end of the presentation. Next slide. And for any territories joining us today who are making use of the consolidated block grant, another quick note for you all. Please remember to report all consolidated block grant or CBG expenditures for each service category as SSBG allocation expenditures. You will, as usual, distinguish between current year allocation versus carryover if applicable, but do not try to split CBG between SSBG expenditures and other block grant expenditures, in part because these funds have in fact all been consolidated and are considered one source of funding. So yeah, to recap, please report CBG expenditures just in the SSBG allocation column, even though the name does not entirely correspond to CBG, and I understand that that may be a little bit confusing. Next slide, please. Now, here is a screenshot of the landing page for the SSBG portal, which is where you will access the post-expenditure form. The link for anyone who has not visited the portal before is on the slide. It is ssbgportal.acf.hhs.gov. I am now going to turn it over to my colleague Zach at WRMA for a brief demonstration of how to access and navigate the SSBG portal and post-ex form.
Thank you very much, Hannah. You did a very nice job of kind of walking through each of the elements. So I'll simply just kind of be showing everyone where they are going to be on the actual website itself. As she said, my name is Zachary Eckstein. I work at WRMA, and we are on the Data and Technical Support contract for SSBG. So we run the SSBG website, and we are the SSBG technical support team. So whenever you email support at ssbgportal.net, it will be one of my team members or myself responding to you. We have myself, Amara Cragg, and Esmeralda Chavez, who are currently on our team. So if you do have any technical issues with the website or questions about your report, you can always feel free to contact us. Okay. Go ahead and share my screen here. So here we are on the welcome page of the SSBG website after you log in. We are on the example website, and I'm logging in as an example state user. So the first place that I'm going to go as a user is forms, and I'll see my 3 form options here for my state. Today, we're talking about the post-expenditure report. So we'll click that link, and we'll land here on the most recent year. We'll want to double check what year we land on with our dropdown and identified over here. So if we were to change the year, for example, make sure the page reloads and you have the current year that you're looking for actually listed on the side here. So as Hannah described, we have 3 tabs for our post-expenditure report: definitions, expenditures, and recipients. We have 3 contact info persons that you'll need to provide. First is the state official contact info, then the state SSBG contact info, and the state CFO contact info. We ask for information for each of those 3 individuals, followed by the definitions of child, adult, and family for your state for the services that are provided. And lastly, we have our assurances section. This is where the first two checkboxes are about carryover funds and about the transfer of TANF into SSBG to make sure those rules are assure that those are applied correctly. And then finally, we have two questions about the actual use of funds for TANF and to make sure that those TANF transfer funds are reflected correctly in the ACF 196R. So again, these first two are checkboxes to certify that we are following the rules. And the next two are yes or no questions. And if you check no, please provide an explanation for your program specialist to review. Next, we have the expenditures tab. And here's the real kind of meaty spreadsheet of our post-expenditure report as we were discussing. On the left-hand side, we can see we have all 29 categories, service categories listed, all the way down to other services, as well as administrative costs in our row 31. Row 30 and 32 are blocked. These are automatic sum rows, just as this last column is an automatic sum column once you start entering data. As we look across each row, we can see the different columns for different data entry. So our first two columns have to do with your SSBG allocation expenditures for each of these categories. So that first column, like we said, is the current year SSBG allocation, or the funds that you received for FY 2024, since this is the 2024 report. If you expended funds that you carried over from the previous year, FY 2023, then you'll mark those expenditures in column number 2. So any funds you carried over from last year that you are now expending this year in the second year of your 2-year period for expenditures, since carryover can only go for 2 years. Our third column is going to be for any TANF transfer funds. So that's funds you transferred in for FY 2024 up to that 10% of your TANF block grant, and that you expended for SSBG services will go in column 3. And then if you carried any of those funds forward, those TANF transferred funds, like you transferred them in FY 2023 and you carried them to 24 and you're expending those will go in column number 4. Lastly, if you expend any funds alongside any of these first 4 columns, so if you have anything more than 0 in the first 4 columns, any of them, you will also indicate any other federal, state, and local funds that were expended for that service alongside SSBG funds. Our last column is, again, the total expenditures column that will automatically total all 5 of the previous columns. Next, we're asking if you're providing actual or estimated amounts of the dollars in your post-expenditure report. We understand the way that some of the money is divided. Some of these are estimated at times between the different services. The provision method, whether it's through a public or private institution or both, as these are checkboxes. And finally, just to make sure, a last check to make sure you filled out column number 5, check off to ensure that you have. You'll do that for each of the rows where you expended SSBG funds or funds transferred into SSBG from TANF. All the way down until we get to line 34. This is the place where you're going to, any remaining funds to be carried forward into the next year will be noted. So any SSBG allocated funds that you received in FY24 that you're transferring forward to FY25, you'll do the total amount in this last row here. And if you have any of those TANF transfer funds that are moving forward into the next year, you will indicate the amount of those funds here in this column underneath the TANF transfer column. If there are any notes about where funds were transferred from that need to be noted besides the TANF block grant, you'll do so in an explanation in our first comment box at the bottom here underneath the tabs. Our second comment box that asks you to list the sources of these funds is referring to the other federal, state, and local funds indicated in column number 5 that were spent alongside SSBG funds. So to the best of your ability, please describe what other grants or places those funds came from. And finally, if you did provide any dollar amount or mark recipients for other services, our category 29, please provide a narrative and list what those other services may be so we have some idea of what that category entails for your state. Finally, if you have any additional comments or there are notes to be left on your report, they will go in the additional comments box at the bottom. Moving on to our last tab, we have the recipients tab. This tab is expecting that if you have expenditures for a service, you will have recipients for that service. And if you don't, you will end up, once you save your report, with a fourth tab named Validations, where it will simply ask you for an explanation of why that is the case. There are several of these flags that may trigger as you complete your report and you go to submit it. If you see that new Validations tab pop up, you will also get a message at the top of the screen, and you must simply provide an explanation in the comment box for that Validations tab, and then you'll be able to complete and submit your report. So those should not stop you from submitting your report, but you will need to provide some sort of explanation. Our columns here for our recipients are children, then adults 59 years and younger, 60 and older, and of unknown age. We have 2 automatic totaling columns for total adults and the total. We ask that you indicate whether or not these counts of recipients are actual estimated or sampled counts, whether or not they are duplicated or unduplicated counts, and the eligibility criteria that you have for this particular service category or cluster of services. At the bottom of this recipients tab, we simply have the final total row at the bottom that will automatically total up those numbers for you if you want to use that as a data check. Once you complete filling in your report, you can, of course, save it throughout as you enter data. If you need to leave and come back, save. Once you're done and ready to submit, you will click the submit button. It will ask you if you are sure, and you can go ahead and click yes. And the website will process. And of course, we left a lot of required fields empty, so any errors in your report will appear in a box like so, and the fields that are required will be marked. As you can see, we must complete this required contact information before our report will be accepted. Now, if we check the status of this report, we can see that this report is considered not submitted, and that's because we have errors. If we completed our report correctly and were able to successfully submit, we would see a status of review in process. This means that your report is submitted, you are no longer able to edit it, and a program specialist will review your report and then either accept it or set the status to resubmission requested and send you a message letting you know what they need to see on your report in order for you to go in there and edit it and resubmit successfully. When you receive the email that says your report is resubmission requested, you will then be able to go back and edit it at that time, make those changes, and resubmit. Once you complete your pre and post expenditure report for a fiscal year, you will be able to do some checking on your performance measure calculation. So this is the performance to plan or your pre and post report comparison. Again, you can update your pre-expenditure report well into the year as you expend your funds and change your plans. I believe the slide said up until the point where you are going to submit your post-expenditure report for that year. So here you'll be able to see how you lined up with your pre-expenditure report planning versus your actual post-expenditure report spending for each category, as well as what your final score, your total score for your state for that fiscal year will be. The last two things that I'll mention here is number one, we have our dashboard. So if you want to get a look at kind of the nation as a whole, you can do some filters for recipients or expenditures, whatever service categories you're interested in. If you want to narrow down the type of recipients, for example, you're able to filter and see this data visually on our map, as well as download a CSV of the data. So you can grab that whenever you need to. If you need the full data pull for your state, or if you want to see across states and compare. I think one thing I forgot to mention is if you do want a copy of your report on our post-expenditure report page, once you have actually submitted your report and it's been accepted, you can click the Export Full Report button, and you will be able to get that out as either an Excel file or a PDF, a copy of all the tabs of your report for your records. The last thing I'll mention is our tutorials link in the navigation bar. That will take you to our YouTube playlist where we house the recordings of these sessions. For example, we have the pre-expenditure webinar that we did previously, and I assume we will be posting this one as well once we are able to get it processed and good to go. Okay. Once again, my name is Zach. And our SSBG technical team can be reached at the support@ssbgportal.net email address, and we'll try and answer your questions as best we can. So now, if there are any questions about the post-expenditure report, we can go ahead and take those now while we're looking at the report if you like. Otherwise, I can turn it back over to my colleagues at OCS to continue.
Thanks, Zach. That's a great question about any questions coming in. I would encourage folks to submit any questions about the portal at this point, just for efficiency. And then if we don't get any in the next couple of seconds here, then we can move back to our other slide deck and keep going. Give it just a little bit longer for folks to type in any questions about the portal at this point.
I'll also note we have a downloadable user guide that's a PDF, which walks step by step through each element and has all of them like screenshot and labeled with most of the elements defined for like, what is this expenditures column? What is this recipients column? So if you don't want to scrub through this webinar recording, you just want it in paper, the user guide will serve you well for that purpose.
Thanks, Zach. All right, I'm going to keep us moving. Please feel free to keep questions coming in, but we will go back to our slide deck. And I think, Hannah, you were going to take back the sharing, right? The speaking.
Yes. Thank you so much, Zach, for that amazing demonstration. I mean, I can talk about this all day, but having a visual component to see what the report is all about, I think is much more useful than anything I could say. So I'm just going to take a couple more minutes for the last section of our slideshow to just go over sort of a quality checklist. These are tips for ensuring a successful completion of your post-expenditure report. We want everyone to have their post-expenditure report approved as soon as possible, but if any of these components are found to be missing or inconsistent, we as program specialists often will have to send it back for resubmission. And just to save everyone time, it would be great if everyone filling out their post-ex could go through this checklist and check everything off to make sure that the report is good to go. So first of all, as we've mentioned before, please ensure that all service categories reporting expenditures in your post-ex also report recipients, and vice versa, that all service categories that report recipients report expenditures. Make sure that the column entitled Current Year SSBG Allocation Expenditures, when summed up, matches the total SSBG or CBG award for the reported fiscal year. You may refer to the notices of awards and or the allocation charts that you receive from our office to ensure that you have the correct figures. And one exception is I do know that grant recipients who follow and report on the state fiscal year may have slightly different numbers to work with just because of the fact that they are cutting off their data and calculations, so to speak, at a different time. We, as program specialists, are also aware of this and can work with you on a case-by-case basis to ensure that the numbers are reconciled correctly. Furthermore, if expenditures are reported under the column titled All Other Federal, State, and Local Funds, then make sure that the sources of those funds are listed at the bottom, as Zach showed you. At the bottom of the expenditures tab, there will be like text boxes to put in these clarifying notes. And if expenditures are reported for the other services service category, make sure that those services are also briefly described at the bottom. Items 1, 3, and 4 on this slide, if not filled out in the post-expenditure report, will trigger, as Zach demonstrated, the validations tab on the web form. And if you will either be prompted to like reconcile that information or provide a note explaining to us as your program specialists why there might be like inconsistency or incomplete information. Next slide, please. We also want to make sure that there is consistency between the post-expenditure report and the pre-expenditure report submitted for the reporting year. Specifically, when it comes to carryover, make sure that the total carryover from the fiscal year prior to the reported fiscal year matches the carryover listed in the pre-expenditure report for the reported fiscal year. And also make sure that the total carryover from the reported fiscal year matches carryover listed in the pre-expenditure report for the current fiscal year. Again, to give a concrete example to make this easier to understand, for the upcoming FY 2024 post-expenditure report, make sure that the carried over SSBG allocation and expenditures column, when totaled up, make sure that it equals the carryover listed in the FY 2024 pre-expenditure report. Then make sure that the remaining funds to be carried over into the next fiscal year entry equals the carryover listed in the FY 2025 pre-expenditure report. I hope that helps clarify things, but again, if any of this is confusing or you would like me to speak on it at more length, just drop a note in the Q&A. Next slide. And relatedly, please ensure that carryover information for any TANF transfer funds used is also consistent with figures in the pre-expenditure reports, and that TANF transfer amounts in general are consistent with the ACF 196R form that I referenced earlier. Next slide, please. All right, and with that, I am concluding our presentation. Here we have a slide of just some more useful links. In an earlier slide, you will see the link for the SSBG portal where you can access the post-expenditure report itself. Here we have links to the SSBG webpage under the ACF website, and then an email address for SSBG portal technical support, as well as the general email for the SSBG program office. And thank you all so much for attending. Thank you for your attention. At this point, if anyone has any questions, any comments or concerns, please feel free to drop that in the chat. And I see that there is something in the Q&A already. So will you be speaking on when the FY 2025 awards will be dispersed? That is a great question. I am sure that is top of mind for many grant recipients, if not all of them. I see Beth has come online, so if you wanted to answer that.
Sure. Yeah, really great question. Very timely. We are preparing in ACF to release funds. If you have any outstanding items with your program specialist from your FY 25 IUP and or pre-expenditure report, please reply to their emails or their phone calls as soon as you can, because if you don't do that very, very quickly here, you will experience a delay in your funding. But yeah, those grant awards for through the end of the continuing resolution, which is December 20th. So it's a part of your Q1 funding. That release is coming out very, very soon. Other questions for our team? Feel free to drop them in the chat or the Q&A section. We'll also take questions for WRMA on the portal or any of the speakers that you heard from today. I'm gonna give it another couple minutes for folks to get some questions in. In the meanwhile, we want to thank you for participating today with us. As a reminder, we will post the recording of this session, and there's a lot of content that we'll either post the slides for or maybe package up in a checklist of like that. I was picturing a checklist might be helpful for those quality checkpoints that Hannah just presented on. So if you don't have a synopsis of what you really pulled from this webinar that would be helpful, please let us know and we can work on materials that could assist with the reporting phase. So we'll look forward to seeing those who report on the state fiscal year. We'll get your reports back in about 5 or 6 weeks. And then at the end of March, we'll get them back for everybody on the federal fiscal year. We'll look forward to reviewing those materials. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions or comments, so here's one more. Okay. Yeah, thanks for that question about the quality check. It was actually a couple of slides. So I'm happy to click back through those, but I think it also would probably just be beneficial for us to share the deck so you can click through them at the pace that you would like. But let me go back for you to those. Here's the first one. The third one, okay. This person knows exactly the piece they wanted to capture. Here's the third slide with the quality check. All right, last call for any other questions or comments, please. All right, team, I'm gonna close this out. If you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to be in touch with your program specialist or our inbox. You can see the email address for that at the bottom of the slide. We appreciate you, appreciate your time, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks very much.